start. I'm Roger Daviston. Tonight's blab, I have with me Dr. Michael Seaman. I am a personal development consultant and leadership consultant. And Michael, introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do.
I do cognitive behavioral work with business, industry, couples, families. I've done therapy and counseling for many years, and Roger and I have put our resources together, and we're working together with business and industry to help them think about how to make their relationships and with customers and with the business better.
Yes. And tonight's blab, we're going to talk about character and the importance of character and how it relates to the organization and why it's important. Michael, what is character?
You know, Roger, character is really who you are when nobody else is looking. It's who you are at the essence of who you are. It's your identity. It's how you think of yourself. And when everything else is put aside, it's who you are when you've faced adversity, you've had a situation occur that's difficult, that's hard, and you're able to persevere through that difficulty, then that develops character in a person. And that character leads to identity in terms of who am I? A great example is a person who goes to college and perseveres through 4 years of classes that sometimes are meaningless, sometimes just mean absolutely nothing to you, but you persevere through those classes and you get the sheepskin and the diploma and you are a college graduate. Mm-hmm. So it's going through that adversity. I think education a lot of times is not so much what you learn as much as the fact that you went through the process. And so as a result of going through that process, you become a college graduate and you get a degree of some kind. And it could be said that develops character in the person who's able to persevere through the college experience.
Explain to me why character is related to your identity, because identity is key to behavior, but doing certain behaviors. What is it about character and identity? How are they related?
What happens is character is the core of who you are, and identity is also related to the core of who you are. But what happens is it's a behavioral process, so that you go through hardship. And it's, for instance, if you have a book to read that you really don't want to read, or you have a task you really don't want to engage in. Several years ago, I had an attic I needed to clean out, and I wanted to quit about halfway through. And the friend I was working with, she said, let's keep doing it. Let's keep working at it. And we got it done, and we got the attic cleaned out. And that gave me a stronger sense of identity. My attic is cleaned out. Now, that's not about me, but the character part is who you are, who I am as a person. And so when you have to read, say, 5 chapters in a book, that doesn't mean you're a person who can read 5 chapters in a book. It means that you've accomplished that task. You've persevered through that difficulty, that adversity, and you're able to take that that perseverance and apply it in other areas of your life.
You told me.
So you have a sense of you have a sense of accomplishment.
Go ahead, I interrupted. Did you say that again?
You have a sense of accomplishment. Let me give you another example. When I was in college, between my junior and senior year in college, I spent a summer in Bangladesh. I spent 3 months in the interior of the country doing all kinds of work with the school system and with the missions people there. And I got back and I went to college in my senior year. And that experience, as difficult as it was, gave me a sense of what I could accomplish there in school. And it gave me confidence in my own competence to handle adversity in my senior year, which was nothing compared to what I went through during that summer.
You told me recently that really character was what was left over after you persevered. I like that definition. Yeah.
That's right.
Jim Rohn taught me, he said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And I read a book recently about some Christians in China who are persecuted, and they go to jail and they have to spend time in jail. And they said, we didn't pray to be delivered from jail. We just prayed that we would be faithful through that process, because they actually saw the process as a way to build that character. So how do you get character?
Roger, isn't that so different from what we always do? People get into marriages hoping and thinking, hey, this is going to make my life easier. People get into a business. They get into a position thinking, this is going to make my life so much better, so much easier. I'll be able to make more money. I'll be able to have less tasks I have to do. It's going to make my life so. That is the theme of our whole culture, our whole society, is life is going to be easier. When what we're talking about is that we have to embrace the things that are hard, and there's a reason to embrace those things that are hard. And the reason is because it develops character within us. And as a result of that, we have a sense of what we can accomplish. There was a lady recently, Roger, who took a trip, and she told me that as she was getting ready for this trip, she'd always printed out her boarding pass. And I thought, well, yeah, I always do that too. And what she said was, at every turn in her trip where something was a little different, she decided to take the path that she'd never done before. And it was harder for her. And so she embraced the harder path. And as a result, she came back and said, she felt great about the confidence that she had in her own competence to handle situations in a variety of different ways that she never had.
Always taking the route to persevere. Yeah. So I think I think, Michael, we've already answered this next question, is how do you develop character?
Well, the enemy of character is what you think you should have to do or can do. And really, I would say the enemy of character is fairness. Wanting life to be easier and thinking, what, I've done this, I've done that, and I should be able to take the easier road now. And from our conversation in the past about the rope, it's about dangling versus really desiring to pull yourself up the rope and finding ways to do that.
And so, so character building character is a process.
It is a process. And you know what? It doesn't happen by being busy. It really happens by being still and waiting and allowing that process to unfold in front of you, and trusting that you can manage what's in front of you. Now, that's going to be hard.
Now I've got that opened up some files in my mind, because when I work with a client or clients, I see this a lot. They have to learn new skills, new leadership skills. And like you might have a person who grew up as a technician and came up in the business as a technician, and now he owns this business, and that business has nothing to do with being a technician. The part of running a business is nothing about being a technician. But when adversity comes, and the first thing when adversity comes, a lot of times that person will go get busy doing technician work. And I think
they do
what comes naturally. And why do they do that, Michael? Because I see that a lot. I mean, they need to be doing other things that they need to go to doing instead of being. You understand what I'm saying? Because leadership is about being.
That's right. You know what? In that example, they're doing what's familiar, being the technician, because they know it. And to venture out into an area in the business that might need attention means that's going to be unfamiliar and uncomfortable. And so when you're a technician and you're owning a business, then what happens is the work of a technician, and that's familiar. It might be uncomfortable, but it's familiar. And so what happens in character development is you're willing to face those things that are unfamiliar and uncomfortable, and you embrace those things. And so that's what we have to do when we're thinking about developing character. Then we have to embrace hard. And actually what happens is when you think about how this all develops, it starts when we're children. Parents a lot of times will allow their children to sit in front of a TV or watch a video, and they don't require them to do the hard things of reading a book, taking a walk, doing the things that are difficult. And when they get to high school or college and are faced with that peer pressure to do the thing that's fun versus read 3 or 4 chapters, what do you think they're going to do?
Default. Well, that's what happens. This my children did it. I did it.
That's right.
I did it. I didn't read a book till I was 30. I made it through college. I don't know how. I mean, I read a little bit, but I don't know how I did that. I didn't get through college without reading a book.
I don't know. Let me tell you a story, Roger. This is true of me. When I was in the 1st grade, I will never forget my 1st grade teacher. She was named Miss Rucker. I was amazed at how beautiful Miss Rucker. Well, Miss Rucker didn't teach me how to read. And so I'm the oldest of 4 in my family, and I have a 10-month younger brother. And in the 5th grade, I was not functioning in school. I could not read. And so in the 5th grade, I'll never forget my mom saying to me, "Michael, how would you feel if we decided to hold you back in school?" And I remember crying and laughing at exactly the same time, because I was crying because my brother was going to catch me in school. And I was laughing because I knew I needed the help to be able to read better, actually to read. Miss Kendall, my 5th grade teacher, caught me up so that instead of making C's and D's, I ended up making A's and B's. Now, the downside, the difficult part of that was that I had to explain to my peers, to other teachers, how we were not twins, how I had not actually failed, and yet we were in the same grade. That adversity, persevering through that adversity, gave me the character, the confidence, and in my ability to excel academically.
Yeah, it gave you confidence. It helped form your identity. I see that.
It did.
I see that.
It did.
You know, my job or my role in the business is to facilitate personal growth and development in the people. And you know, you and I believe, and I believe this, is that the company grows by growing the people in the company. And I always tell people, if you want to grow personally, you got to read, study, read. But reading books is the the way I've grown. And somebody's got the answer to what you're going through if you just find the right book. I mean, somebody's already read the book on it. What do you say to that person that says, I don't know, I can't read. I've got ADD. And, I read a page and it goes away. What do you say to that person?
But let me ask you, what have you typically said to that person?
I've just been frustrated by it. But what have I said? I would just say, well, if you want to grow, you're going to have to read, something like that. I said, I read, you read. I didn't read till I was 30, and I try to tell them how my business grew after I started reading. Because when I started reading and I started growing, my business started growing. I mean, you can look at it on a chart. I was stuck at about 400,000. I started reading, went to 3 million pretty quick because I changed.
And that's how it works. That person has all kind of alternatives, audiobooks. There are all kinds of information. There are other ways to get information to that person if they're interested in getting the information. Now, if they're not interested in getting the information, there's nothing you can do to get that person the information.
But the person that says, I can't read, really what they're saying is, I choose not to read.
They're actually saying, I won't read.
You broke up. Say that again.
It's that when they say I can't read, they're usually actually what they're saying is,
Yeah.
I won't read. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that I can't, that I'm helpless. It's that I choose not to. It's more an act of the will. Now, clearly, if somebody doesn't have the ability to read, that's something totally different.
Yeah, these people can read; they just choose not to.
But
and what they're really saying is, I don't want to persevere to the work.
And it's the work that we've got to go through. Each person's got to go through to make the team the team.
All right. Once you've developed your character, can you lose it?
You know, Roger, it's funny because we're always developing. We're always in a process of becoming better, stronger. And what happens is, the way I like to think of this is that if you take a line and you look at adversity on one side and you look at perseverance or character development on the other side, you're always going to be able to grow because you're going to have that adversity increase over time. And so to the extent that you have adversity over here, and let's say you've had adversity at a 6 in your life, and you've met that adversity with perseverance, stamina, and character, you never lose that 6. Now, if you encounter a 7 at a level of adversity at 7, it might feel like you're down here at 1 because you're underwater. But what happens is, that's just opportunity to hit it another notch, and you get to 7, and you don't lose that.
And when you get to that 7, you look back at that 4, and you think, what was wrong with me when I was at 3?
That's right. That's exactly
right. It's a good measure of character building is to go, for me personally, is to go back and look at my journals from 20 years ago and look at the struggles and the things that I was persevering through in 1990. It embarrasses me. It does. I'm embarrassed at myself because I guess I've grown so much since then. I look back on that time and I say, man, that wasn't a big deal. Why were you making it a big deal? It's because I hadn't built that muscle yet. It was a big deal. It's like you doing the chin-ups right now. You're doing 3 or 4. It's hard on you, but you'll get to 20 and look back and say, why was it hard for me to do 3 or 4? And the persevering is a process. Brad, I see that you're calling. I'm gonna let you come in here. We got a guest wants to come in. Probably got some questions. Hang on just a second. But so, Brad, how are you? I can't hear you.
Okay, I enabled my microphone.
I got you.
I'm good. I'm on my iPad here. Actually, I didn't want to call in. I just touched the wrong spot by mistake.
Well, go ahead. Do you have any? We're glad you're here. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? And by the way, we got a lot of people watching on Facebook and Periscope. If you want to join us, just come to blab.im. Look us up. Build your business through better relationships.
Well, I just now tuned in, so I'm not up to speed on everything that's gone on to this point, so I don't actually have a question. So,
okay, well, you can just stay here and hang with us, and if you have one, you're welcome to ask us. But once you build your character, you can't lose it.
That's right. The other thing we're talking about that we haven't actually mentioned yet, is that the herd mentality. We're all so not predetermined completely, but we're so quick to join with other people emotionally that what happens, we develop this herd mentality around ourselves, and we get a group sync going. And what character does is it helps you step back and think about who you are in the face of peer pressure, the crowd, and you're able to ask yourself, okay, just a minute, is this really what I want to do in this particular situation? Or is there an alternative that might be better for the business, that might be better for me, that might be better for the organization? And so when you develop character that helps you step back and think rather than just react like everybody else is doing with this general herd mentality.
Okay. Now, let's move on to the next subject that's important to me personally. Why is character so important in a company? Why is character so important for individuals in a company, in an organization?
You know, Roger, what happens is you can have an employer and have a bunch of employees, and if all the employees want to do is just comply with what the boss wants, then what happens is you get a group sync going where everybody's just following what he wants, and the result is you don't really have a team of people who are able to create a synergy for that organization. And the result is that you have one thinker and a bunch of followers, and that's not really going to work because everybody's going to go back to the boss and ask him, what do I need to do?
Everybody's waiting on the boss to move.
That's exactly right.
So,
and what has to happen is if this is going to be a team of people who are thinkers, who develop character, who have an identity, then what happens is, I think of it like a football team. Every player on that football team has a role, and every role is critical. And if you have people who are just watching the guy next to me, then the tackle is going to watch the guard. That's not really going to work very well. So that tackle has to think for himself about what he's going to do in that role in the line and think about what to do and how to do it. So it's critical to develop character in the employees so that they're able to, I think of it like owning their role as a business. So every role in the business is a business in itself. And so those folks are taking initiative. They're thinking about what to do. But, you know, again, the employer has to be able to allow for mistakes, for differences. And this brings us right back to the fundamental question, and that is, how do different people come together? How do they remain separate, maintain their identity, and be connected at the same time? That's always the question.
And I agree with you. And just thinking back to when I started learning this from Manola, I had a leadership development consultant named Manola Robeson who helped me tremendously. And she was teaching me how to be a leader, coaching me. And this is what I learned. It was the reason my people wouldn't grow is because I wouldn't let them grow. I had to get them in a position where they would. And just as an example, my best installer called me one afternoon, and it was late in the day, and he said, you know, that SOB electrician you hired told me he'd be out here this afternoon at 4:00, and I promised this man we'd get his air on. And he looked at me and he said, he didn't look, he was on the phone and said, what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, I don't know. What are you going to do about it? What are our options? You know, he's trying to put the ownership on me. And used to, the reason he called is because he was waiting on me to pull the trigger. He knows what to do. He just doesn't know he's supposed to use his brain. So, and that's my fault. So I coached him through the process, which takes a whole lot longer than telling him what to do. But that's patience. I'm persevering through my frustration. So we're both persevering here. And so I said, you know, I don't know, what could we do? He said, well, you can make him come out here. I said, yeah, get there about 8:00 tonight. I said, is that a good idea? He said, well, probably not. I said, what else could we do? He said, well, I guess I could tell the customer he won't have his air tonight. I said, well, we could do that. Is that a good idea? He said, well, probably not. See, I'm allowing him to make these. If he'd have chosen that, I'd have let him do it. And and then he said, well, no, I tell you what I could probably do is I could probably go up to the hardware store and get some wire and just temporary it in and probably take an hour. I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, well, I guess I'll go up there and get that wire. But see, he was angry, frustrated, and mad. And I was frustrated because I was in a hurry, but we just stepped back from the process, and he used his creative mind to come up with a solution. And guess what started happening? I didn't get those phone calls anymore. And I got to where I didn't have anything to do. Because I'm not supposed to do. I'm supposed to create stuff as a leader. So, and I called Manola one day on the way home. I'll never forget. It was on 459 going right there through where the Hoover Met was. And I talking to her. I said, Manola, I feel guilty. She said, what for? I said, I don't do nothing no more. I feel useless. And she said, well, you're doing the right thing. She said, use that time to create your future. And that's the reason I'm doing this blab tonight. Because things started changing. I started working on selling my business, formulating what I wanted to do in my life, and really figuring out my purpose. But I never could get there by being busy doing. But that's why organizations need people with character. Not that I had the character, but David had character if I just let him persevere. He could get it.
You know what? It took character on your part. And because you exercised the perseverance and your character, it opened the door for him to experience the same thing.
Good. All right. I got another question. We've talked about character, and we've talked about a little bit about how it fits in with the overall success of a company, character, and individual. I want you to talk about the anger and frustration and intolerance and demandingness and how all of that and perseverance sort of kind of fight each other.
Well, you just really mentioned it with your example. David was angry because you're really not giving him the answer. And anytime people are invited to develop character, they're going to have this frustration because we always want something easier. And when we invite them to do something harder, then it's like a 2-year-old in the grocery store line. He wants the candy bar that his mom is telling him no about, and he's going to throw a fit. And so what we have to do is recognize the fit's not about us, and we have to be willing to say no to the candy bar, giving him the answer. And as a result of that, if he will persevere through that, he'll develop the confidence in his own competence. And too often, parents these days are not willing to say no. Employers are not willing to say no and work through the process for their employees to be stronger and better people. And as a result, they have weak businesses.
Yeah, weak businesses because they have one person with character and 20 people just waiting on orders.
Or they have nobody with character and everybody waiting in
orders. Brad, you've got the expert here. Do you have a question? I know Brad's in business. We're talking about him. We're not talking about him, but I know he understands what we're talking about.
You are talking about me. I'll tell you something that I think I've learned just recently in the last few weeks, Roger, and I've struggled for years and years. And you've got people, I'm sure, online here that have bunches and bunches of people that work for them, but it's just me and actually one other guy right now. It used to be 2 other guys, and my wife does the book work. I'm a Christian guy and a Christian man, and I always try to do the right thing. But I find that I have run customers away over the years, and I've disappointed people over the years because I think that I have not been a finisher, and I have a tendency to get overburdened with everything in the business, and with one thing that you spoke to just now, with trying to do too many things myself, and I can't do everything. So I end up getting phone calls, and I can't do what. I would get a phone call, and I wouldn't answer it because I knew it was someone that I said I would do something, I didn't do it, so I just avoided them. Let it go to voicemail. Well, I realized that I've always had great intentions, but that is poor character. And in order to have good character, you have to be a finisher. You have to do what you said you would do, no matter what, and figure out how to tell other people that you just can't do it. Before you, it's better, and my wife has told me this for years, it's better to communicate and tell people you just can't do it rather than avoiding them or don't answer their calls or don't talk to them. And you can, if you tell them that you can't do what they need you to do, then they don't necessarily get mad at you. And I realized my wife would get angry with me because the bookwork is a mess, because she's waiting on me to do what I was supposed to do and I didn't do it. And my customers would be angry with me. My shop looks atrocious because I come in from a long day of work. I just throw stuff off of my truck. I don't finish. And then so a week, 2, 3 weeks goes by and I can't even get my truck in the shop because there's stuff piled everywhere. So, and then the guy that works with me, my stepson, gets mad at me. So everybody's mad at me and I'm trying to do the best I can do.
And you're overwhelmed.
And I have great intentions.
Yeah.
That's been my life forever.
What's your question for Michael?
I don't think I have a question.
Well, yeah, you do.
Okay.
How do you fix all that? What do you do?
Okay. All right. Tell me what to do.
How do you fix it?
You know, I guess I would start by asking you a question, Brad, and that is, what does finishing mean to you?
Finishing means getting the job done or the task done to the end. Now, that may, in the past, I've just let all of those loose ends go because I didn't know how to get finished. I couldn't get finished. So I realize now, and I've started doing this recently, that sometimes that means delegating to someone else and doing exactly what the story that Roger just told, saying, you know what, I can't do this, and you can do this. The guy that helps me, Alan, you can do this. Now, he doesn't like it because I'm adding more responsibility to him, and he always wants to get paid more money if he does something different or something that he doesn't consider his responsibility. So part of it is delegating to other people, but then there's also the part of following it through to the end, finishing before I start something else.
It sounded like you were saying, too, that you didn't want to disappoint other people.
I never want to disappoint other people.
And so part of that is it creates a kind of a snowball effect, it sounds like, where you're always behind the 8 ball, you're overwhelmed, and there's just not enough of you to go around. And so to some extent, the ironic answer, Brad, is to be still. Because you'd think the answer is to get busier with more activity, when the actual answer is to step back and ask yourself, okay, what's the thing right in front of you to do, and only do that. And as difficult as that is, that gives you a sense of accomplishment if you can take that one thing that's right in front of you and complete it, and step back and breathe, because it sounds like you're always inhaling, you're always taking more stuff in, and to be able to exhale, to be able to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to finish one thing today. I might not finish 10 other things, but I'm going to finish one thing. You can look at that one thing and you've accomplished something. You've finished something. You can feel good about that. As you build on that, that develops character within you, so that your focus is not all those tasks out there that are demanding your time, but you're able to think about what you're going to do and accomplish that because of you, not because you're trying to get all that done out there. And trying to get everything done out there is overwhelming.
You can't get it all done.
Can't get
You're not going
done.
to get it all done. And
but if you set the tone, the pace, the tenor for yourself, then as difficult as that is, that's a level of personal ownership and responsibility for that task that you accomplished that day.
Okay.
Just from my perspective, from what I see, I think one place where you can persevere is persevere through the conflict with the customer who's angry. I mean, I think that's a place where you could grow. Answer the phone, listen to them, let them be angry, let them be who they are, let them be pissed, let them be frustrated. It ain't about you, it's about them. And relax. Relax, back away from it, because they're angry and they have a right to be angry, but don't take it on yourself. It's a boundary. Let their anger be their anger. And you be you, and then you join with them. You're right. I'm wrong. I told you this. I told you that. And they just want you, Brad. They just want you to respond to their frustration. That's all they want.
Let me tell you something that I did that changed things dramatically that I should have done years ago. All phone calls come into my cell phone. Mm-hmm. So I was brave and decided that I was going to call forward my phone to my wife's cell phone. Mm-hmm. And I did that. And I know that she doesn't want to get any of those phone calls. And guess what happened? I answer the phone call every time. Uh-huh. Even when I see that it's someone that I didn't do what they wanted me to do, uh-huh. I answer the phone call because I don't want them telling her that I didn't do what they wanted me to do. Uh-huh. So I've realized that accountability is very important.
That's the accountability piece for you.
In a lot of different areas mm-hmm. of life. Mm-hmm. And so I've really focused on that, and I'm trying to look at ways that I can hold myself accountable in other areas mm-hmm. of the business and of life. Mm-hmm. And that involves involving other people. Mm-hmm. And that's, for example, you mentioned your coach. That's when you have someone to ask you questions and talk to about things. That's an area of accountability. Mm-hmm. So, that's made a big difference with my customers. Mm-hmm. A big difference.
Mm-hmm. Have the accountability with the phone.
Yes. Yeah. And then also, if I'm on a phone call with a customer and I do not answer, it goes to her, and they still get a human being on the phone. So I don't get any voicemails ever. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing for business. Mm-hmm. They talk to a person every time they call, mm-hmm. whether it's whether it's possible for me to answer or not. So that's been a remarkable thing right there.
Good. I just want to sort of wrap up, review a little bit, because I got one thing I want to add. But tonight we've talked about character, what character is. We've talked about how you develop character, and you develop character through persevering through the hardship, because the hardship, if you persevere, builds really maturity, sometimes emotional maturity, other types of maturity, but the perseverance is a process of making you complete, which builds the character. And once you have that, you're not going to lose it. It's just like Jim Rohn said, the best thing about becoming a multimillionaire is not the money, it's what it made of you through the persevering process. So he said, if you lose the fortune, you hadn't lost much, because the fortune will come back because you identify with that. That's who you are by the character, and you mentioned the character is tied to your identity. But I want to mention one thing. Once you have character, you have something else. You know what that is, Brad? You remember? Character. After character gives you hope for the next struggle. Because you persevered, and you built the character. And when the next struggle comes along, you got hope. I want to give you a good example. I read a story not long ago about Athens, Tennessee, where the sheriff was a crook and the Democratic machine was crooked, and they couldn't get the crooks out because they had beat people at the polling place. And this is back in the 1930s or 40s. Well, guess what? After the war, a bunch of those guys that were in Normandy in the Battle of the Bulge came back to Athens. And these guys had persevered through all of that. And they wanted to make some changes in the political system. And when they started winning, the bullies came out and started fighting and taking over stuff. And the GIs who had built the character actually went and got weapons out of an armory and dynamite and corralled all the bad guys into jail. And, you know, when I read that article, I think, well, I'm sure those GIs had a lot of hope because they sure have built a lot of character, much more than the bullies, by the way. Much more than the bullies. So they actually threw dynamite at the bullies, got the bullies corralled, and the bullies gave up. And the democratic process won out, and they won the election and got the bad guys out. But that never would have happened if the guys hadn't persevered through the war and came back. See, those bullies didn't know what they were up against. They had no idea. No idea.
Great.
Yeah. Go read it. Athens, Tennessee. It's amazing. I never heard of it till I found it online a couple of months ago. But that's a great story of what perseverance and character leads to hope. Hey, listen, it's been a great show tonight. Everybody listen on Facebook. We do this, and Periscope. We do this live every Sunday night at 8 Eastern. It's Dr. Michael Seaman, who's a cognitive behavioral specialist, and I'm Roger Daviston, a personal development consultant and leadership consultant. And basically, we both just help people change their thinking. If you can see, change on back here is change your behavior, change your results. But the first place to change your behavior is you got to change the way you think about stuff. And that's really all we do. And that's why we do this show every Sunday. And we appreciate you joining in, and hope you come back next week. Michael, is there anything else you'd like to add? Is there anything you'd like to add for me?
I appreciate. I want to say I really applaud Brad plugging that your wife's cell phone. Took a lot of courage. Took a lot of courage.
It did take a lot of courage. I don't know if I'd have done that.
Hey, you know what took a lot of courage? That was not hanging up when I realized that I had touched the wrong spot on the iPad and that I was going to be on camera.
Hey, we've persevered through this process. This is our 7th show, 8th show maybe, and the first one was really hard. We didn't know what we were doing. And, you know, we're muddling through it. We've made a lot of mistakes and still making mistakes, but it's we're growing. We're growing too. Everybody's persevering.
Good.
So listen, thanks for everybody for joining in, and we'll see you. Hopefully come back next week. See you. Bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
See you, Brad.